Hey friends, welcome to openBIMvoice, the first episode of a new podcast series, which is going to be, you guessed it, about OpenBIM. Today's guest, my first episode, is my good friend Menno Mekes from the Netherlands. Hey Menno, thank you very much for joining. How are you doing today?
Hey Petro, yeah, I'm doing great. Um,
You ready for a chat?
yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, that's amazing to hear. Tell me a few things before we go. Tell us a few things about yourself, and after that we can jump onto OpenBIM in 2026. Where we are, where
Yeah.
we're heading, what's happening.
So I'm a building engineer, basically a BIM manager at the office, Aansig of Architects. It's a Dutch architectural office. We exist for 30 years. We have our anniversary this year. I've been working there for 25 years, doing a lot of different stuff. Basically, um, actually, I'm now in the process of recording a lot of videos for my coworkers, actually to uh, help them understand how to uh, create and validate their models. Um, and I'm also active in the BIM community in the Netherlands. So I've been working on the BIM-based IDS, the second version. I'm part of the team that created the nomenclature, actually the list for material naming that we can use for in every software. And I'm also involved now in the IDS for spaces for the digital building permit and IDS design and engineering. Yeah, I'm also part of that. So a lot of IDS stuff basically. Yeah.
When do you sleep? Like you're involved in so many things. You work, you
Yeah.
involved with so many initiatives. When do you get the time to do something else? Wow,
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
lot.
they're not all simultaneously. And for now, basically also the IDS for spaces, I think, well, it's getting a bit more work that I need to do, but I can actually do it during office hours and I get paid for that. Uh,
Oh, okay, that's
yeah.
good.
But the
It's
rest
nice.
is usually on Fridays, and sometimes it's my day off and sometimes it isn't. So I just
Hmm.
do it because I love it. And
I understand. I
yeah.
understand. Okay, okay, that makes sense. Cool. You already started with all this repeating ideas here and there. Why ideas? Why do you do so much work with ideas? What is ideas first and foremost? Because not everyone listening or watching this know what ideas stands for.
Yeah, well, IDS, it's an open standard, Information Delivery Specification, created and maintained by Building Smart International, with IFC, Industry Foundation classes is from them, and they also have the BCF standard. So IDS is the latest standard. I think version 1 came out late 23, 24. Um, and it's about validating, checking your models, your own models or somebody else's models, and it focuses on data. Um, so it really focuses on checking the data and the relations in your IFC model. And the great thing about it is it's not, you can set rules. You can say, find walls and they should have a fire rating. And if it has a fire rating, it should be 30 or 60. And you can do it general or a bit more specific. And the best thing is that if you create the check, you say it has to be something. So you're actually checking for an answer. So if you are running this IDS, this specification on your model, you don't only get the mistake, you don't get a message saying you did it, this is wrong. You also get the message, you did it wrong, and this is the correct answer. And that's something that we really need in our thing. We don't need, if I did something wrong, I obviously didn't know what was the right way. So that's what IDS is about.
Interesting, interesting. You know, Menno, I have to ask you about this because I'm a bit puzzled. You know, I speak to a lot of people who are interested in BIM, who are interested maybe in OpenBIM as well. And not many of them care about data, you know. You mentioned data, and I see like on LinkedIn and in the conversations I have, most people still and the conversation revolve around geometry. Why do you really care about data? What do you do with that data, and who actually is it, you who need that, or your clients, or why do you care about data? Because like again, I struggle a lot to convince people about the importance of data. So maybe you can help me with that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we are creating models, geometrical models, and we export them to with the IFC schema to a model. If you have a rectangle or some cube, you need to know what it is. So you need to say this is a wall, or this is a slab, or this is a covering. And especially walls and coverings are quite different from each other in the IFC schema. So when you are doing this correct, you can send this model to anybody in the world, because there are thousands, literally thousands of viewers that can actually read IFC, and they are not focused on the way you created the model. They are focused on the international schema that says, if I see something that is an IFC wall, I have to represent this geometrical in your screen like this. So you can click on it, and you can also get the properties and the attributes from it. And like a wall and a cladding is an easy comparison, because a wall is like a brick wall and cladding is maybe a thinner facade next to it. They have different properties. They can have different properties, but they can also have similar properties, but they can have different things from the schema. So you can actually point it out. And of course, clients, and in our case, a lot of clients are contractors. They also have their own way of requiring data, because they need to order stuff. They need to know that this door has a fire rating of 30, that it has to have a self-closing device on the door or on the frame. And you can model it, but still you have to click on it to see what it is. And if you model this fire exit or this self-closing device, I don't know how it's called, that's the thing, but it also needs to apply to the door that says, I need to have this. So it's a lot about requirements, and this is real for building. You can imagine it, but before building, we also create models for building permits and for clients. And especially what we do is we model really basic
Geometry.
floor plans and boxes that represent dwellings, because our office is mainly housing complexes. So we model boxes, and those boxes, they have a floor area, but it's in 3D, so they have a volume, and they also have a number, like where you're living. Next to the doorbell there is a number, so that's also something you need to know. You need to know what type of dwelling it is, so you need to know how many square meters it is compared to the bigger to the gross floor area. So you need to have all these information in order actually to get a feasible building. So the data starts from the spaces all the way up to the last screw.
Interesting. That sounds very useful to me. I mentioned in the beginning OpenBIM in 2026. Let's add to that. How do you see, like from your standpoint? So you are designing for an architectural office, or you do also the structural parts, or only the architectural?
No, we are doing designing and the building, well, the engineering, not the, so basically the building itself, and not the MEP part, and also not the structural part.
Okay, good. So in your workflow, how do you see the importance of OpenBIM in 2026 in the environment in the Netherlands? How would you describe that? If somebody asks you, like, how do you actually use OpenBIM, and why is important so much nowadays?
Yeah, we use it, of course, because we as architects, we have a lot of different clients. And for every project, we have two clients. First, the actual client that starts the project and then hires a contractor. And after the building permit, usually the contractor becomes our client. So we already have two different requirements for the model. So with OpenBIM, with the IFC schema, for example, we are creating like a more generic model that can hold all the information that can be in models that is necessary. So we can adapt to the clients that we are facing, because contractors, they ask different things than the clients itself, like I explained, more like spaces versus real geometry, real objects. But they also ask they usually ask it in a different way, or they ask different things from us. So if we start with generic ones that we can put in every project. So that's why it's important to always do that in the same way, and working in the same way means standardizing. So that's why we use standards, and we also use it in our own office where we start designing. We design in SketchUp because that's easy and fast, and that SketchUp part is exported also to an Excel file where we have the square meters and stuff and all these calculations. And then we also export simultaneously an IFC model. That IFC model is then converted into a Revit file where we can add more information, we can get more detailed, and then we export it again. And the spaces that we export are also data that flows back into the Excel that we promised our client. So there, like that, we can actually keep the way we communicate the important numbers like the gross floor area and stuff like that to the client from the beginning all the way to the end. And they just read the same Excel file every time. It's just that first the data comes from the sketch program, SketchUp, and later it comes from Revit. But it's all data that we are exporting. And there's only one truth, which is the Excel, which is the truth for the client. But the IFC model is the truth for the contractor. But they all originated from one model. Mm-hmm. And during the process, first the model is SketchUp, and then we stop with SketchUp and we continue with Revit.
Interesting.
But that's why OpenBIM is also important, actually, to be able to choose your own software, but also to switch from software 1 to software 2 during the process. That's possible with OpenBIM.
Okay, so you don't see it like OpenBIM is first and foremost, it has played this role for this, right? Not that you as an architect, you are going to work together with another engineering team, MEP or structural from another company which might use different tool than Revit, right? Yeah. And this is one use case. Are there any other reasons why we should consider using IFC instead of actually sticking to Autodesk, let's say?
I think, well, that's the best example, actually, to work together with people who use, well, structural engineers who are doing steel work. Tekla is a lot better than Revit for that. And a lot of architects work in Archicad, which is also fine. I mean, actually, I hear that they can actually export better IFCs than Revit. Mm-hmm. And we work together with smaller architects as well that use Archicad, also bigger architectural offices. So we work together with a lot of different companies with different software. And I think, and what I've also said before, it's when you standardize, and you always work in the same way, you get the workflow that is always exactly the same. So you know what to do in every phase. This is what we need to. You don't have to think about what should I add to this wall today. Well, I can tell you it's the same as yesterday and last week and next week. This is the data that you need to add, because that's something that people value. And that's why we have these guidelines, like the BIM-based IDS, for example, and that's more basic, and the IDS design and engineering is more technical or more elaborate. Those guidelines are created by people who actually need those models to work. So BIM-based IDS was this mainly designed by 12 contractors. The first one and the second one, we got architects involved, structural engineers, MEP engineers. So it got more spread out through the community. Mm-hmm. And with the design and engineering, there's an even bigger team of a lot of different types of companies involved in saying, okay, well, let's talk about a window frame. Let's talk about a separation wall, or even a floor hatch. Let's talk about all these items and think, what do we need? What do we actually want? And then the contractors say, I want this. Architects say, I want those things. And MEP say, okay, so every stakeholder, that's probably the best word, every stakeholder gets to say, I need to have that.
Uh-huh.
And then we got a lot of, and I think in the end we have maybe like 130 properties throughout this whole IDS, which is not a lot if you consider that it's also a couple of hundred items that we are explaining.
Hmm. I understand.
Yeah,
So makes sense. You detailed very well the design coordination aspect and the use case for OpenBIM for IFC models. There you also touched and mentioned that the general contractors have their own use case for some stuff, and then you have also the client who some of them are using it for building permit approval, and I think something else which should be important as well, like how common is also to include information about facility management and operations that the clients can use.
yeah.
Like, is this, are we getting to that point where that it's not so important right now? The focus is still in the design coordination.
No, no, it's very important. But in our practice, where we design housing, mainly housing apartment
Ah,
blocks,
okay.
our clients, they are
The owners.
developers,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they are not owners of the building. Well, we also have
Uh-huh.
clients that are actually renting out the apartments,
Okay.
so they are a bit more interested. But actually, we had once had a project where we did the whole model and it got built, and then the client said, "Well, I'm actually now hiring another company that is going through our database of all the buildings, and they are starting to add information to the IFC models so they
Wow.
could get a maintenance plan." So we actually had someone in our office for a couple of days that were actually taking our IFC models and start adding information to window frames. So this window frame is north, this one is south. So if they're wooden window frames, the south,
Mm-hmm.
the north, they have different cycles of maintenance. So
Okay.
they would add that stuff to the model, and that's really important. I think it's really useful, especially for maintenance. But
Mm-hmm.
in our office, we don't come across that much.
Okay.
But yeah, there is of course a whole different like airports and other buildings that
Where that kind of information is much more
yeah
useful,
yeah
for
yeah.
sure, for sure. Okay, makes sense, makes sense. Um, when it comes to use of these models, to what extent can we use these models? Like in Norway, there are many projects where they try to push it to use only the models. How do you see how do you stand on this when it comes to model-based construction? Like, do you see what is missing in the Netherlands, for example, for these models to be used also on site, like for building phase and so on, and to give up on drawings? Do you like where do you stand on when it comes to this?
I think in the Netherlands it's still a bit far away. I would say that's the yeah. I don't think it's happening in the next couple of years. I think there are some initiatives actually called BIM at the building site where they uh, are creating some steps to do this. And of course, you have these some robots that they draw the floor plans on, but they're all like innovative stuff. But
Mhm.
there's not really yet a big workflow, I think. But maybe uh, it's better to talk about that with someone who works at a contractor because
Yeah, yeah,
they have more insights on that, I think. But I think the main software that is actually good at doing this is for example, tools like Dalux. They have a really big suite that is for the building site.
yeah,
So you can do a lot, but I think it's still, um, taking photographs of parts of the building and checking
yeah.
that or creating topics from that. But actually aiding that, I'm not sure how
Hmm.
far we are at the building sites. But yeah, there is a lot possible, I think. But mainly, what you think is some carpenter, it it needs a drawing uh, because a drawing you can just lay out a drawing on the floor and step
Hmm.
on it. Whereas if you would just open a model, you have a 3D model, you still it's on a laptop or an iPad, and then
Or
Yeah.
phone. It could work on phone. But yeah, like
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
perspective here comes from another angle. Like if we invest so much time in putting data in the models, like what are still the use cases for the drawings? And like that could be a use case that
Yeah.
somebody on site does that. Indeed, like are drawings so much more important for clients as well, for the people who are going to maintain this, or do you think like they have right by now there are many like digital twin platforms where they try to digitalize and actually use the data, right? So in that context, drawings become something like is not really useful, and but what you
Yeah.
the data that you put in the model, but again like this can be another whole discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think drawings are best used for creating the building, and after
mhm,
that you can just say there's a window here, and you
mhm.
click on it and you know the size, you know how many
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Yeah.
milliliters of paint you have to put on. Yeah, so I think drawings are a one-time use probably just for uh,
Mhm.
maybe well, floor plans are always because we are trained to understand floor plans as a plan. That's why
Yeah.
we
Yeah, but I
still do
think
that.
I think the
That's
floor
fine.
plans, sorry for jumping in,
Yeah,
like the floor plans, like I think we get to a point where these BIM tools are actually generating quite accurate information, so that we
yeah.
don't have to also invest the time in the drawings. But again, like I should like this should be something complete topic. So let's not go deeper into this. Tell me from again like from a more general perspective. What do you see? What do you see that is happening when it comes to OpenBIM in general? What are the things to look for in the near future? You mentioned ideas in the beginning, and that's extremely important. Maybe people who watch or listen to me, they also know that I'm also a big proponent of that because everything starts with that. If you don't keep yourself accountable to meet some requirements, you are never going to meet them. That's how it starts, right?
Yeah.
And we still both of us complain that we would like to see more people using ideas. Unfortunately, everything starts with that. But on top of that, do you see any other things that we should follow, like developments and use cases for OpenBIM in 2026?
Um, well, I'm not quite sure. I think what for me, well, I live in an open BIM bubble, so for me it's
I feel
everything is
it.
obvious. But um, yeah, like data. Well, if we talk about data, I think for example, the Building Smart Data Dictionary is something that can be very useful. Like databases that you can access where they just have the information that you need. Of course, the IFC schema is also on that.
Mhm.
So I think
Using
there's a lot of
most using
yeah,
most tools that come from OpenBIM. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I see a lot of small tools that are being developed by a lot of people that
Yeah.
they create online viewers or editors, ideas editors or checkers or so and also add you know who I'm talking about.
You know what's funny about that? I think we have right now more tools than proper users, man. Or
Yeah,
let's say
yeah,
like maybe not users, but companies using this.
yeah,
Unfortunately, because yeah, but that's another discussion.
yeah,
But now let me ask you
yeah,
actually something quite important. Um, Even though we talk a lot about OpenBIM, we do and live OpenBIM every day through our practices. Uh, like that's not the reality for most people in AEC. So most people still are entrenched in proprietary formats, in proprietary tools around proprietary ecosystems, and
yeah,
most clients don't require OpenBIM. Most, like if you look globally, and most projects don't use OpenBIM a lot or to the degree that we talk about. Let's assume that we have some people, some professionals who heard about OpenBIM and they see the potential of OpenBIM and they would like to learn more. They would like to become part of the movement because I see OpenBIM as a movement, um, which happens and it's pushed by people who have passion and who really want for the build environment to become more efficient and more sustainable through better practices, right? What would you recommend them? Like how should they start? What should they do to get on this journey? Because it's not an easy journey. It's not something you can just jump
true,
on.
yeah.
Like I'm starting doing OpenBIM. I'm going to start delivering IFC models and creating IDSs today. What would you say to somebody who would be interested in that?
Well, there is a lot of uh, good videos online, but I think mainly an openBIM needs an open mind because you're used to something, and if you want to change or you want to see how it's also possible if you have a setback, because I can understand that. It's what I see with my coworkers every day. It's why I'm creating a lot of videos to explain this is how you use these tools. This is what you need to check for. This is and what I do is I create videos. It's their homework, for example, and so they can just do that whenever they have time for it. And then when we meet in small groups, like 5 people, so I have these meetings every week. I have a meeting like that with like 4, 5, 6 people, and I just sit there. It's like, give me feedback. What do you
Need
think of
that.
that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what do you need? What do you don't you understand?
Mm-hmm.
What are um, the subjects that you want to know more about, so I can uh, create more videos on that, or tutorials, or whatever, so I can help them in what they are struggling with. So a tutor, maybe, yeah, somebody who actually knows it. You should have one in the office. I think every office should have, uh, or every company, like 1 in 20 people should know about this and should be able to show other people. And I think the open mind is, for example, a very important one. Just not don't complain, just start listening and start doing it. Because open BIM, it doesn't mean open as in an open world, as you know from the video games. It's not open, it's a standard. So, and a standard is like a language, and IFC is the language where the grammar is, you can try to understand the grammar, and it's not for daily use. It's quite small and not that hard,
Mm-hmm.
but you still need to find a way of learning that. And the rest is the spelling, and that's hard because especially if English is not your native tongue,
Yeah.
how would you find? How would you know what a flow terminal is? Because you don't understand the word terminal. Because yeah, terminal is like the beginning or an end of a system, and
Yeah.
that's something that, yeah, you just have to tell them. You have to show them again and again by
Mm-hmm.
actually creating tools to help check the models. And we're back with ideas again. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when did you start to work with IFC models in your career? Like how many years has been since you first been exposed to an IFC model?
it's actually it's no, it's 1 month. It's April 1st, 2014.
Wow. You really remember the date? Wow, that's
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, before that, we were, when we started the shift from AutoCAD, we started with Revit. Revit
yeah.
was, we did that because the contractors were our clients, and they said, if you are not using Revit, you are not uh, designing this building.
Working
So
with us,
that
yeah.
was easy. There was no choice for us, actually, because
Okay.
we as an office, we actually love to work on the building, on the engineering part as well. And then in 2014, we started with the Ponsteiger, where the Lex and Jeffrey, they were the BIM coordinators from the two contractors that were our client. And they said, oh, let's just do open BIM. And they came up with that. Where it, uh, and then they just, from a blank slate, created the ideas, well, the requirements for that, execution plan and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just started with the whole team, and it was new for everybody. And everybody, they would got enough time. So um, everybody got a Sotheby course, like workshops. BIM Club had the issue management. It was quite new. It
Mm-hmm.
was actually very new at the time, so we did that. And from that on, yeah, that was basically the catalyst for Open BIM in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started it because I had to, actually, because somebody said, we're going to do this project at Open BIM. Because before that, I didn't really know about it, actually.
That's a good client. I
Yeah,
like that. That's a good client. That's how a client's supposed to act. Like, if you
yeah,
want to work with me, I want to work this way. You have to
yeah.
adhere.
But
And again,
it was a good time to start as well, because before that it was very closed, and we're now back at a lot of So it was a golden time that it has passed or again. So I hope it's like that we're at the, it's always a sine
Normalization
wave.
of
So
this.
I hope
Yeah.
we're at the bottom of the wave now. So we're going to get back up
Yeah,
again.
I see that. I see the OpenBIM spirit spreading around
Yeah,
across the globe, especially in Europe. So there is a lot of good news to this, but the bad news is that it takes time. I want to add something before we wrap this up. I want to add something to what you mentioned. Those things were extremely important, especially the open mind. You can't become part of OpenBIM if you are entrenched. Like the cultural aspect, it's extremely important. So
yeah,
you are going to face, like if you go in this direction, you are going to face a lot of resistance. Like I face, if you don't believe me, just go on LinkedIn and check the comments to my everyday post and you will understand very quickly. And also, like people don't really believe, they come only with excuses, only with things why you shouldn't do it.
yeah,
I think two things are can make a big difference in how quickly you are going to go through this and maybe also to do it in the right way. Um, and this is not just for marketing purposes, but I strongly believe that that's the right uh, way of doing it, since the organizations managing and maintaining this standard has some training on that, right? So some certifications and trainings in OpenBIM, like Building Smart has the professional certification paths, which are helping with that. That's one thing. I think that's going to be useful for many people who never were exposed to OpenBIM. It's a great place to start. And the other place, it's my free community or other free OpenBIM communities if you find around. BIMvoice Academy, it's free on school to join. I even have a free course, OpenBIM 7 days challenge. Like again, surrounding yourself with the right people, I think it's extremely important. Seeing
yeah,
other people who believe in this, who work with this, who ask questions about this, makes you like that's the easiest way where how you are going to grow. If you are in an environment where everyone just bashes IFC, like most people are going to do who are using Revit and all the other Autodesk tools or whatever, then it's going to be very difficult for you mentally to do something. But when you are surrounded with people who talk about these things and believe in them and they work with them and try to do something about it, that's going to make a big difference. Again, like I'm not telling you anything
yeah,
in this, like it's a free community. Now we're getting close to 900 people already. So it start to grow. There are other movements when it comes to OpenBIM. OSARC also promotes OpenBIM and open source in AEC. So again, feel free to do and to research these things. Menno,
yeah,
I love everything you told me. Um, for sure, it's so much more we can discuss about, and I hope I don't hope you are going to join me for other chats again where we can focus more specifically on a topic. Maybe we can talk more specifically about ideas. Maybe once we can talk about BSD and so on. But this time I want to keep it as this. I enjoyed our conversation a lot, and I want to close this with asking you to let us know how people can reach out to you if they would like to ask you a question or something about everything you said, or more about your work or whatever.
yeah. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn and in your school community, of course, which is a better place to ask questions, I think, because that's where um, most people are like-minded, so you can get the questions. And yeah, just always ask how instead of why. I think that's also a good way of a good thing. Think about that. Just you know you want it, and then you just go with it. Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. Well, it's not the best platform these days, actually, with all these complaints and AI stuff. It's too bad, but yeah, is there any good alternative? I don't know. But
Not
that's why
really.
these
Email,
communities are really great.
email. If you want to share your email, but if not, like people can contact you on LinkedIn. That's a great start. Even if you like, it's not, you can still
Yeah,
connect with people. I still like, I agree with you that
yeah,
AI has really gotten out of hand and a lot of, we get a lot of low quality content and the conversations and
yeah,
so on. But the one-on-one conversations are still there. So just sending a message and talking
yeah,
for real to a person. Although I would be honest about, there are some people who bluntly just use copy paste and put in ChatGPT and they copy paste that the reply. I find that like really disrespectful. Like, come on, just be yourself. I don't care about how you write in English. Even if you speak German or Italian, I don't care. Like,
Yeah,
just be yourself. Like, I will use translate, write in your language, just write your own thoughts. I think that's extremely important. So you
yeah,
heard this, guys.
true.
This is going to be the first episode. Contact Menno on LinkedIn if you have any questions and stay in touch. And yeah, thank you for bearing with us. I hope you enjoyed this kind of discussions. And if you want something specific about what you heard, what we discussed with Menno, just let us know so we can touch about that in the future. And maybe we might also do a workshop or something like that, depending on the interest. Because we also have some workshops. We have few workshops on LinkedIn, both, and also on YouTube. And yeah, there is going to be more in the future. But again, um, let us your thoughts, okay? We would appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Menno, for joining me and sharing
Then,
your thoughts. I'm really looking forward. I really hope we can inspire more people to join our OpenBIM army and make the impact that we start to see in the industry.
yeah, I agree.